All right, hour number 3 here on a Monday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker, joined in studio by Bills team reporter Maddy Glab. And, well, you guys were talking a while about this one last night on the postgame show. Does it feel any different today?
Doesn't feel too much different. When you do a show, it's like we're on like 5 to 10 minutes right after everything happens. And when a game goes to the final play, you're kind of racking your brain of, okay, how can I sum up everything that just happened and also include the first part of the game? So it's always a fun challenge to put a game into words that goes into the final few plays. And we got to do that last night. I mean, it was the most points scored in an NFL game all season. Josh Allen had an incredible game. Matt Stafford as well. The receivers on both ends had some great catches, great performances. But I go back to this. While the Rams scored 44 points on Buffalo's defense, it is uncharacteristic to see that from our defense. We rarely see it out of Buffalo's defense. In fact, the Bills have not allowed more than 44 points in a game since 2017. That was Sean McDermott's first year as Buffalo's head coach. We don't see this often, and this team does a great job fixing things after something's been exposed. Another great thing, the defense just held the rushing offense to 3.3 yards per carry. So trying to find some of the positives in a tough loss like we saw last night.
Yeah, and they did kind of shore up the run front in the second half. I think they only had 36 yards in the second half, the Rams running the football. And they even mastered kind of slowing down those end arounds that they had Nakua going on in the first half. Von Miller had a tackle for no gain on an end around, and then A.J. Epinesa had another one where they only got a 1-yard gain. So they did get that corrected in the second half. We are going to take phone calls, so if you want to jump in, 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. We'll just have Maddy here with us through that stretch. And look, Maddy, a lot to correct is right because Detroit subscribes to some of the same offensive principles that the Rams used under McVay. Ben Johnson has taken a lot of elements of that Rams offense and uses it in Detroit. It has morphed and been tweaked to some degree to fit Lions personnel, but Jared Goff likes to use a lot of those same concepts, so they better get that stuff fixed quickly. Otherwise, the Lions are going to test them on anything and everything that they struggled with yesterday.
I mean, look, this Lions offense ranks top 10 across the board. I've started to dig through some of the stats in preparation for this game that we're about to talk about all week. First, they rank first on offense. They've scored a total of 183 points. The Bills are right under the Lions. They're scoring a total of 129 points so far this season, but second in total yards, eighth in terms of their rushing offense, fourth in terms of their passing offense. I mean, this is an efficient offense. We've seen the way that the Detroit Lions have beaten teams by a huge margin of victory in several games throughout the season. You're right. This defense has to figure out what went wrong and correct it so that it doesn't happen in a second straight week. Another thing that our defense has to get back to doing, and I think is just a lifeblood of this entire team, is getting back to forcing turnovers. We didn't see that in last night's game against the Rams. It was the first time all season that Buffalo's defense hasn't gotten a takeaway. I mean, they tie for the lead in the NFL with a plus 17 turnover margin. In a game against the Lions where this could be a game where it comes down to the final couple drives, it could come down to who has the ball last. Turnovers are going to be a big part of this game if you're able to force them.
Yeah, get some extra possessions for your offense so they have more than the Lions have, because this could very well be another high-scoring affair this week in Detroit at Ford Field.
Yeah, they're 1-2 in the league in scoring. The Detroit Lions
and
are
1-2 in point differential.
32.1, and the Bills are 30.5. Extra possessions are going to be a premium in this game, and if you got to, like I said earlier, and even if your defense is not dominant or just absolutely impossible to move the ball against, you still can be effective if you can make plays. And that's what the Bills have been able to do this year. They were making plays by getting turnovers. They were turning them out regularly, and they dried up. This was a 0-turnover game on both sides. It ended up being a 2-point game at the end, and you can bet that the Detroit game's going to be the same. I mean, it's going to be a tight game.
This defense owned up to it in the locker room, too. We heard from a few of our defensive players after the game, Taron Johnson being one of those players alongside of Terrell Bernard. They spoke about this is not how we practiced all week. We put something together in practice that we felt confident in. Then the game happens, and we as a collective unit did not have our best game.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were pretty surprised by what happened there and knew this is not what we practiced for a few days leading up to a big game against the Rams.
Yeah, Bernard was pretty frustrated. He said, I don't think we did any of what we practiced all week, and that's what it's going to look like. You're going to give up 44 points when you don't execute the game plan. Let's go to the phones, though, and see what you have to say at 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. And we go to Nick in North Tonawanda first. What's up, Nick?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Love your show.
Thanks.
You guys are all-stars in your own right. Maddie, you're working on your second year as an MVP. Love you, too.
Thank you.
I want to talk about one particular play. I'm not sure if you guys talked about it or not. I just started listening. There was a lot of offensive line holding calls. There's one in particular. They showed a replay of Cooper Kupp. He had his forearms clamped on whichever defender was. His hands were closed. He made sure he showed that. But he actually clamped the guy and turned him, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Nakua's last touchdown in the game there.
Yes.
Yeah, and look, I'll tell you right now, just having been in the building, the Bills sideline was jumping up and down because that was on the Bills side of the field. They were literally jumping up and down and grabbing their wrist with their other hand, saying, that's a hold, you've got to flag that, and they did not. And it's unfortunate because it's crunch time in the football game, and that block, I mean, Taron got out leveraged because the receivers switched at the line of scrimmage, so the coverage guys had to switch too.
Those screens they do, you know.
And, you know, some people call it a rub play, some people call it a pick play, but Kupp engaged that block, I think, before Nakua even had the football, which is technically not legal either, and they didn't flag that. Then on top of that, it's a borderline holding call. They keep the flags in their pocket, and the Rams are in the end zone. And look, it's tough to accept those non-calls per se, but, I mean, to our point when Maddie came on here 10 minutes ago, if you're playing better defense in this football game, the game doesn't come down to one play where you're hoping to get a call. Those non-calls or the calls that are made get magnified when you're playing defense that's below what your standard has been all season long.
Yeah, and you can go back and look at, you said it, the false start that the right tackle of the Rams had on the fourth down, and, you know, the fact that Deion Dawkins also was doing the exact same thing on the left side for the Buffalo Bills. They didn't get called. As long as they call it consistently, you can kind of live with it. But you're right. On a play of that magnitude right then, yeah, that's hard to live with if you're a fan sitting at home going, why, you know, that cost us. You're going to always get those. And I'll say this too. I've said this a ton. We've had this been having this conversation for a couple of years now about the officiating and late in the games. When you have close games, as the league does a lot, officials' calls, whether it is a non-call, a bad call, or a good call, they always get scrutinized because it makes a difference the later in the game that it is, because the other team has no chance to recover. Even if it's a good call, people squawk about it. So non-calls and bad calls are going to get double the attention, and close games are what does that. Nobody cares if you're up by 25 and that happens to the Bills. You know, it makes a difference in these 2-point games, and the league has got a ton of those these days. A ton of those.
75% of the games are one-score games.
Yeah.
Just look at the Chiefs, who win 15 straight one-score games. Let's go to Mark in Jersey City next. What's up, Mark?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Maddie, nice to speak to you. I'm normally not this guy, you know, but Dorsey lost his job because there was 12 men on the field last year and the Bills lost a game. The end of the game sequence is magnified because I think the McDermott naysayers and honks will come out of the woodwork when something like that happens. But this game was lost in the second quarter with 12 and change left. Josh misses Hollins. And McDermott noted after the in the post game, he would like to see them run their ball with their running backs. He misses Hollins. That's 3 straight passes, and then the punt block ends up in the Bills' end zone. That's a 14-point swing. Bills lose by 2. There's your ball game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. And it's then at the end of the game, there's no run back on. Codrington just lets the ball bounce. He doesn't field the ball. There's no sort of tricks, or you know what I mean? One of those scrums that they have at the end of the game where you're just desperate. There's nothing on. This guy is woefully ill-prepared. Do you have 9 men on for the punt block? You have 9 men on. These are egregious errors. They've lost 2 games because of special teams. They were the first team to allow the dynamic kickoff return for a touchdown. Their special teams brings them down. Again, I'm normally not this guy, but I hate to say it like that. But, yeah. Oh, and one quick aside, Brady is awful on the broadcast. Shilling for the refs the way he does, he was terrible. He was criticizing Josh for the 1 hit out of bounds early in the game because he was, like, loitering on the sideline, and then he was him and Pereira were defending the refs for picking up the flag on when Amari Cooper was getting, like, the inside of his jersey and pad held halfway down the
plate.
field.
You got the back plate held.
Yeah, Pereira was saying he clearly didn't obstruct him while the TV is showing him being held by the back plate. It's like, dude, be quiet. Just get off of there. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yeah, there was also a call in that game where they called pass interference on both players. I've never seen that. They called it on the offensive player and the defensive player on the same play. What the hell's going on? Have you ever seen that in your life?
I have not.
Both guys involved in the play on offense and defense both called for pass interference. Help me with that.
I'll say this. I'm only 62. I've only seen a handful of offensive pass interferences in my lifetime.
Right.
So, yeah, to call it on both, that's a unicorn call.
Like what?
It's a unicorn call. I don't
Don't
know
call anything then.
Right.
I don't know. We're calling it on both guys.
Right.
What the hell?
It's, yeah. Yeah.
And to say that he's not impeding Amari Cooper when you're holding his back plate, he can't get the ball because you're slowing him down by tugging on him. You're an anchor.
Yeah.
You're impeding him.
I thought a couple of the calls, I thought it was inconsistent on both sides. Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. I thought I think they called one on Christian Benford as well, or maybe it was Lewis who got called. I thought they called him. He had the guy's the hip, his hand on the hip. Same thing. I didn't think he was obstructing. Yeah, I thought the officiating was up and down in this game, but I didn't. And there were some crucial moments. And in a game like this, like I said, with 2 points difference, those crucial moments are magnified. But I thought it was inconsistent both ways. But yeah, there were a couple of crucial plays where it went against the Bills that I was like, I don't know.
How taken were you, Maddy, when you heard Coach McDermott say we wanted to block the punt, but we didn't have enough guys on the field?
It's a bummer. I mean, there was an opportunity there that was lost. There's an opportunity at the end of the game for Codrington to field it. You never know what's going to happen there. And this is the points that you talk about leading into a game against the best team on offense in the Detroit Lions, who are 12-1 right now. You have to have every single facet of your game buttoned up and ready to go, because this is a game where you need to play a complete game. You talk about building to the end of the season, playing your best ball at the end of the season where you can lead into the playoffs feeling really good about the product that you're putting on the field. Special teams has got to figure out what's going on and how to fix it this week, because that's not, you don't want to go into a game against the Lions where you have something that can fall apart like that. You have a play where you don't have enough men on the field. This team and this coaching staff, they've been together too long to make mistakes like this that could really impact the course of the end of the game.
Because you got a game coming up where you have 2 immensely talented teams. Both can score a ton of points, and both, have good squads top to bottom. So a game like that is won in the margins. And you've got to be airtight in the margins because it's probably going to determine the outcome of the football game. Back to the phones we go, and we're going to hit up Scott out in Illinois. What do you got for us, Scott?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having my call.
Sure.
Hey, I have a question in regards to the last couple of sequences with this quarterback sneak. And actually, I agree with the call. I think you need to have the ball in your best playmaker's hands. He showed it during the game, and I sure would have hated to deny him. But I do have a question about how they did it. On the first sneak, they ran Davidson down into the box and just kind of sort of pushed him along. They come back out on the second sneak, and they go full house with Hollins, Johnson, and Gilliam. And I'm just curious why they would have, as crucial as that play was, why they didn't go full house in the first sneak. It looks like the Rams were condensed already. In fact, I think they maybe brought a safety down, but everybody else was in the same position. So I just don't understand, unless they were trying to go no substitution, although, again, it was the same defense that was on the field. I don't understand why they didn't go full house to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point that you bring up, Scott, because biggest play of the game, and this is no knock on Zach Davidson, but Zach Davidson is called up for just his third game this season. Granted, it's third in a row, but that's a guy that has far fewer reps on that kind of a play than Ty Johnson, Reggie Gilliam, and whoever else you want to put there, Mac Hollins, who have all been lined up in that role before. And then they run it again and get those guys on the field, and they get in. It is a valid question. Maybe Coach McDermott will be asked it today when he does his post-mortem press conference later this afternoon. It's a valid question and an astute one. Why is a practice squad call-up your primary push guy, for lack of a better term, to help Josh get in the end zone? Because if you watch the play, he gets impeded by Michael Hoyt, the defensive lineman, who leaps in there along with Braden Fisk and keeps him from getting a good push on Josh, who does not get in.
Yeah, I'm with you. You can pick that play apart 20 different ways from Sunday, and you could be right on all of them. Wrong formation, wrong personnel group, wrong time of the game, wrong play call in general. All of it. The simple fact of the matter is they should have got in and they didn't. And if that play goes in, it gives the Bills the best chance to win the game, as we all know. Because it didn't, they had to waste a timeout, and they got in on the next play. I take, no question about it, it didn't work. But half the time it doesn't. And it's not because it was the wrong thing to, you can say it was the wrong thing to do if you want.
Well, less than half the time it doesn't. They're very successful on that play.
It's the most high percentage play they can run with their best player. I got no problem with the call, that they got to get in. They got to get in, and the guys got to know that.
Well, I think that's his point, though. Like, where is the full house backfield? Where is Reggie Gilliam? Where is Mac Hollins? Where is Ty Johnson? Guys who have all been in there on those plays this season. Instead, you have a practice squad tight end out there. It's a valid question.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might have been personnel on the Rams defense, or it might have been some other reason why they wanted to put those guys out there for a different look. Certainly, Cook is out to the left, so they drag one guy out of the box. But you got to get in. If you get in, then you've got a better chance of winning the game. And I've said it earlier in the show, they ain't going to win that game, but they got a better chance at winning the game.
Right? And we're all, fans and us as well, we're all asking these types of questions. You better believe this coaching staff is asking themselves all of these questions, even more. This is a game where the plane touches down in Buffalo around 3:45 in the morning. I'm sure Sean McDermott might have gone straight to the office. This is one of those games where it's a loss for Buffalo. You have a lot to figure out. You want to get through a lot. You have a big game coming up. I would not be surprised if Coach went straight to the office to start going through some of that film, to start figuring out, okay, what questions do we need to be asking ourselves? What could have we done right? What went wrong? How can we fix these things? And getting that communication to a point where they're not going to slip up in these moments again.
Yeah, I can promise you they were watching him on their iPads on the plane back.
Yeah,
they were doing that on the flight.
They had the full game on and digested by the time they touched down.
We got to take a break here. Maddie, thanks for popping in
Yep.
on a Buffalo Football Monday. Hopefully you're here under better circumstances
Right.
next week with a fresh edition of the Maddie Awards, because that would be a big win over Detroit in Week 15.